The fact is that all these experiences happen to you, they're part of you, and there's a lot of value in that. There's a lot of value, there's a lot of wisdom, there's a lot of compassion, all those painful experiences changed you, and there's value in those. Letting go of the past, what we're talking about is we're talking about our pain, our past pain. Now it is part of you. It is part of you, it's changed you, you're not gonna ever be the same again. And that's okay.
Let me ask a little truth. I'd like to know your point of view.
This is such an important topic because culturally, in our culture, there is a big taboo against having something wrong, being angry, being sad, being resentful. We really, really look down on people that have a problem with something that's happened in their past and can't get over it. But here's the thing, you can't get over it unless you heal it. Maybe you've been out to have, coffee with a friend, and you've brought up something that is going on for you, and they'll say, let that go. It happened so long ago. It's not good for you to think about that. Just let that go. Well, that's the message you get in this culture, but you can't do it. I heard an analogy, someone saying that if you think of your past, it's not like garbage you're just going to drop in. It's not useful to you. Think of it more like a book bag that there's a student in school, and he's got this book bag full of books that are really heavy, but they're full of information that he needs. And so you're not going to tell him to just dump the book bag and go to school, because he needs the information inside, so he has to hang on to the book bag. Now, so he learns everything in the books, then he can discard the books, which is what you're going to do when you're healing. That's the healing process. There's value in the book bag. There's value in your past, And when we're talking about letting go of the past, what we're talking about is we're talking about our pain, our past pain. But here's the thing: is that those things, letting go of something, letting go of the past, forgiving someone, those things, you don't have to work at those things. Those things are going to happen automatically when you heal. And as long as you work on trying to let go, and you don't do the healing, you just try and jump over, you go from, this trauma to letting go and all that, you're going to be stuck. It's not going to be real. It's not going to be authentic. And you can waste a lot of time doing that, and I've done that in my life. And I use my own self as an example a lot on my channel, and the reason for that is because I see it as a collective. So much of the time I hear people say that, it was like you were talking to me, it was like you were talking about my own life. I think that these things, we have a lot in common, and so when I'm talking about myself, I'm talking about collectively all of us. In general, the concepts are pretty universal for people that have been traumatized, for people who are empaths, for people who have been messed up with narcissistic, abusive people and that kind of stuff, which is collectively who's watching my channel. Why do we do that? Why do we try and just bypass and jump into, I've forgiven, I'm healed, I'm moving, I'm letting go? We do that because two main reasons. The first reason is that our egos are trying to protect us. Our egos are trying to keep us safe. The feeling of going into emotional pain, painful things, is like sticking your hand in a fire. You recoil. You recoil to do that. Your body doesn't want to do that. It hurts, right? Well, it's the same kind of concept with your ego and emotional pain. It recoils. It tries to get you away from going into those emotional and painful things. It wants to steer you into a safer territory, something that's not going to hurt you. But your ego and your mind is not really your best friend. They're working towards your safety, but not your happiness. You cannot heal something that you're not willing to feel. Okay, so this is the big thing, and so that's the first reason. The second reason is because we are very uncomfortable with death, and when I say death, I mean loss, ending, but it's all to do with the end of something, the dying of something. and we have to grieve the end of that. So when you've been traumatized, or you've been hurt by someone, or you've hurt someone, there is a piece of you, there's something that died. You were a child, say you had abusive parents, or you were abandoned, or they were unloving, or something like that. You have to go into that trauma and grieve that trauma, grieve that loss, grieve the love you didn't get, grieve the innocence you lost, whatever it was. Some people say, well, I don't want to grieve it because I don't want it to be over. I'm hoping we can still work it out and connect, or it's my family. I'm not willing to let them go. I still want to have a relationship with them. But the thing is, you still have to grieve. You have to grieve because no matter what happens with you, if there is a future relationship, you're going to be different. Both of you are going to be different. The relationship's going to be different. Something has changed. Whatever was is gone, and you have to grieve that loss. So if you decide to come back together with someone, it's not going to be the same relationship. And you have to be willing to grieve the loss, let something die, let something end, lose something in order to gain something, in order to have a birth of something new, that's what happens. Life and death are intertwined. Life and death are intertwined. You can't have one without the other one. And culturally, and also as empaths, we are very uncomfortable with the idea that things die, with the idea that things end, relationships end, life ends, childhood ends. Trees don't grieve when their leaves fall off. That's the cycle of life. And I say this to you, for those of you who don't know me, I say this to you, being a person who has lost everyone, including the death of a child, in 2016, right before I started this channel. So I know what I'm talking about when it comes to loss and grief and all that. And in fact, that's sort of why I think this is such a critical topic. Originally in my own life, I went through I had a health crisis, and that became this catalyst for abandonment and a smear campaign, and just basically the crumbling of my entire life. Okay. I didn't know anything about narcissistic abuse then, all of that, so my life just was destroyed, and I made a million mistakes. Okay. But what happened with me was that I thought that I went really into that and really, learned everything about narcissistic abuse, became a counselor. But what I realized, I was in crisis so much that I was busy just trying to recreate myself and all that I don't know how much time I spent really actually getting into the grieving of what was lost. So when my son died 15 years later, it came up for me, all the losses, all the fact that I drew a very clear connection between this narcissistic abuse, the abandonment, the trauma, and my son's death. So there was that. So I had a lot of resentment over that. Through that grief process alone, more or less, because it wasn't like I was going through it with my son's father, with my parents' support. I didn't have any of that because they were already estranged relationships. And all this kind of hit me, all this time later. So when I started this channel, it was sort of an opportunity to go through all of that processing that I really hadn't done originally. And I did that in a way that I think was productive. I did it in a way that I was, basically sharing it with an audience. But I went through and I really focused on processing what happened and talking it all through and telling the stories and all that, which is something I had never done. I had never told anybody anything. I'd never taken the time to really so much think about anything because I was just busy trying to survive, trying to recreate my life. Well, so when this other trauma happened 15 years later, that's when I finally processed it. And if you have narcissistic families and things like that, there's ongoing traumas that happen even if you don't have contact with them. I live in Mexico. My family is all the way up in Washington State now, and granted I don't have so much anymore, but I was estranged from them for nearly 20 years, and I would still As long as I was in Washington, I still got to hear things that would happen, and it was, a constant ongoing process that I had to really go into and feel the pain of it and feel the resentment of it and all that stuff. Okay. I want to just establish the fact that you can't just let it go. You can't just let the past go. Because for one thing, that assumes that it has no value to you, that it's just excess baggage that you just want to let go. And that's not the case. The fact is that all these experiences happen to you, they're part of you, and there's a lot of value in that. There's a lot of value, there's a lot of wisdom, there's a lot of compassion, all those painful experiences changed you, and there's value in those, okay? So the healing process is basically about learning all the lessons. It's about learning all what was there, learning how it happened, what all went down, what all took place, and how it changed you, and how you contributed to it, how you can prevent it from happening again, and all that kind of stuff. That's all the healing process. And also, if you don't do the healing process, if it was narcissistic abuse we're talking about, then it repeated, which of course it did in my life. I had narcissistic parents, I had narcissistic boyfriends, I married a nightmare sociopath, I had another narcissistic boyfriend after him, I had narcissistic friends. I was surrounded by people who were abusing me. And, not until I actually got into it and processed it did that stop happening. Did I marry a nice guy, and was I able to recognize what I was doing? Was I able to have, healthy boundaries and all that kind of stuff? You can't just let go, because it's nicer, it's more pleasant. Nice girls and nice guys don't have resentments, or aren't sad, or aren't angry. You can't. That's never gonna work. You'll never get over something if you have to say, I just need to let it go. That will never work. Letting go is not something you ever have to work for. It will automatically go when you heal it. You automatically go when you heal it. Okay, so how do we do that? How do we heal it? The first thing you do, and about 80 to 90% of the battle is this first thing, and that is you commit to healing. You have an intention and you say, I'm going to stick with this. I'm going to feel my feelings until I've healed it all, until I understand it, till I'm through it. I'm going to go ahead and I'm committed to healing this, whatever I've been through, my trauma, my past, whatever. I'm going to heal it. Okay, making that commitment and being really determined and having that intention is 80 to 90% of the battle right there. The next thing is priming your ego, because your ego is trying to keep you from doing it, right? Your ego's fighting you, don't go there, and giving you ways out, around the pain. So what you want to do is you want to calm your ego down, and how you're going to do that is you're going to do that through talking to it like a wounded child. We're going to have a joyful life once we get through this, but we got to get through this. We got to be whole. We got to be authentic. We can do this. We can do this. We're strong enough to do this. You're going to be fine. Things are okay. Just talk to yourself like that, and say it out loud, say it in the mirror, say it inside your head. But whenever you're getting the urge to bypass, tell yourself no, stick with it, be authentic. It can't be fake. You cannot pretend to be healed. You cannot pretend to be forgiving, pretend to be over something. It doesn't work. It doesn't work, and it will keep you stuck, because energy needs to be moving. And if you do that, if you try and go around something, it will stagnate, and you will feel stuck. And I hear people tell me a lot that they feel stuck. I have gone through periods of feeling stuck, and I know when that's the case that there is something I'm not willing to feel. I need to talk to myself about what is it I'm trying to avoid feeling. The third part is the hardest. This is the part that empaths really, really, really try to avoid, because for an empath going into this emotional pain, the inner turmoil is just agony. You need to sit with the pain. You feel the utter sadness of this thing. Okay, you were a little girl, you were a little boy. You deserve to be loved. You deserve to have nurturing parents, and you didn't get that. You were alone. And it was a scary world, and you did the best you could. Things like that. You tell yourself the truth about your life. You tell yourself the truth about your life. And you feel the feelings. You know, you feel it was super sad. That's such a tragedy. That is so, so sad. Or they shouldn't have done that. That was wrong. That was a terrible thing to do. You know, whatever it was. You know, and I can, I can name off of it. You know, the big one for me, my son. My son dying of sick. I can tell myself, it's a tragedy he died. He was such a wonderful, loving person, a sensitive person, a talented, gifted person who died at 20 because his life was so unbearable because of all the narcissistic, abusive people that we had around us. The abuse that he saw me enduring all my life, the abuse he was enduring, because both of us were scapegoat, and the fact that he felt powerless in his own life and unloved. And he was unloved, except for by me and his brother and his friends. But he was in the family. His father didn't love him. His father was abusive to him. His grandparents didn't love him. He was surrounded by narcissists, the same narcissist that I was, and that was not a healthy environment for him. And all of these narcissistic people abused my children and abused me. And it ended up that I had 2 traumatized children, and one of them didn't survive. That's the truth of it. And, go into it and feel that. Feel that. It is important that we realize how serious narcissistic abuse is for children. How serious, how bad it can be. And, I don't know how I will ever find this out, but I really am curious, if this narcissism epidemic and this opiate epidemic don't have something more to do with each other, as they did in my case, in my son's case. I really wonder how many of those kids who are dying of overdoses were raised with narcissistic parents, same as my son. I really am curious about that. Anyway, so you go into that. Eventually what you come around to is you come around to seeing that everyone did the best they knew to do. They were damaged too. They were wounded people. I was wounded because I was raised by wounded people. I married a wounded person. He hurt me because that's what wounded people do. Hurt people hurt people. That's why he hurt me. That's why he hurt my son. And at the end of the day, I believe to some extent that I was given this family, I was given this son, I was given this experience for some reason. And because I'm strong enough, because I can do something with it that helps the world or something. I believe all of that. So you get to that point. And so when you finally are able to move through it and into forgiveness or to letting go, it's because you've gone through all that. It's not because you have illusions about your life. You're not deluded. You know exactly what happened. You know exactly what happened, and you grieve the losses, and you were angry when it was appropriate, and you took care of yourself, and you gave yourself permission to be whatever you were. And you need to do 2 things when you go into this, when you go into your feelings. You need to engage with them, which is talk through them, tell yourself what they were, just like I was doing, just like my examples. And you need to embrace them, embrace reality. Embrace reality is a big thing I talk about on my channel a lot, because embracing reality was my key to sanity. It was my salvation. Because when I was being abused, when I was living in the narcissistic world and all of that, my life was just, I didn't know it, but it was full of lies. It was full of pretending and lies and illusions, and I didn't know that. And then when it all kind of blew up in my face, and I was so confused and nothing made any sense, what got me to sanity was trying to nail down reality. Then I stopped. I had to completely stop listening to what anybody said, because they were so gaslighting me and smearing me and lying about me. So I stopped listening to what anybody said about me or about anything, and just started like, I need to only go with what I know is true, what I know is real, what I can prove. And that embracing reality, I realized I had never done it in my entire life, because as a scapegoated child of narcissistic parents, there is no, your reality is completely skewed. They have this whole inflated reality. You're somebody, you're told you're somebody that you're not, and you get away from this family. Pretty soon you start realizing people see you more like you saw yourself. It makes more sense to you now. people don't need to see you as any certain thing. They don't need to see you as wrong or bad or any of the things that you were probably being seen as by your narcissistic family. The fourth piece, the fourth and last piece, is kind of a sort of a meditation called toggling. I learned from Pema Chodron. I'm not sure I pronounced her name right. She's a Buddhist nun. Yoga teachers and stuff like that say, in with the good air, out with the bad, right? This is a little different. In this case, what you do is you think about that there are other people in the world going through the exact pain you are. And in what we're lucky about here is that we know, because of this community, because of YouTube and all that, we know that there are other people that have gone through this kind of stuff too. So when you breathe in, anybody who's feeling this pain right now that I feel, anyone that is going through this right now, I feel you, and I breathe out love to you. I breathe out compassion to you. You feel more connected doing that. You're not alone. You're not isolated. You're going through this healing experience with everyone who is going through this healing experience at the time. You're not the only one that's been through this. You're not the only one who's felt this. Someone else in these billions of people is feeling exactly what you're feeling right now, and you're connecting with them. And you just breathe that in, hold it, know that you're connected to the universe, you're connected to the world, you're connected to other people. No matter how isolated you think you are, no matter how much betrayal you've endured, there is someone feeling exactly like you feel right now, and you're connecting with them with your heart, and you're breathing, you're sending them love and compassion. This is good for the world. It's good for you. It's good for you to help others, and this is a way for you to do that. It's a way for you to feel empowered and strong and productive and like you have a purpose and a reason and a meaning for being here, and that all of it has meaning. This is a big thing with healing, is that we need to be able to give, things have to have meaning. We have to be able to find meaning in them. And that doesn't happen as long as until you do the healing. You have to go through the healing, find meaning, assign meaning to it, and give it meaning. You can do that when you heal it, but you have to go through these steps. That you'll find the meaning in all this. When you're going through it, you'll find the meaning in it. It's okay to grieve. It's okay that things ended. It's okay that you're in a new stage now. It's okay that someone died. It's okay that a relationship died. It's okay that whatever has happened, it's okay. It's okay that you made mistakes. It's okay that you really screwed things up. It's okay if you're feeling like, looking back on your life, you did nothing right. You made the wrong turn. Every chance you got, you made the wrong choice. I feel like that sometimes. I really honestly do. And I just think every choice I made, I believed with all my heart it was the right choice. I did everything with utter commitment, believing it was absolutely the right thing. This is how we do it. We can't just let go. We can't just bypass things and hop right over to, healing. A lot of these traumas are big deals, and if they go all the way back to your childhood, it might be back to your childhood. It might be in adulthood. It might be, who knows what it is that is your thing, your trauma you're trying to work through. Maybe there's compounded. Maybe there's many. But there's no easy way to get there. And your ego trying to steer you into just being happy, putting on a smiling face. This is how I was trained to be. I was raised by superficial, narcissistic people who I was taught, my tears, my anger, my sadness, my fears, none of that was acceptable. The only thing that was acceptable in my life growing up was for me to have a smile on my face, make my parents feel successful, be doing well, just not too well, but doing well, and wanting exactly what they were doing, that they were the perfect parents, and I didn't want or need anything that they didn't want to give me. So as long as I always had exactly what I needed and convinced them that was the case, that was right. So I could never need anything. We're never allowed to need anything, never allowed to be sad, never allowed to need intimacy with them, never allowed to want to be known, want to know them, want to have real connection, want to have, love. None of that was allowed. And so, you get used to telling yourself, well, no one's beating me with a stick. I'm not, who am I to complain? I've got, dance classes and a nice house. Who am I to complain? And that's what we do to ourselves. And we spend years of our lives stuck in places where we're not fully thriving. We don't fully understand our lives. We don't fully understand ourselves. We don't understand what we need, who we are, what we're missing. And a lot of what happens for victims of narcissistic abuse, a lot of what is wrong is what isn't happening, not what is. A lot of what's wrong is what is not happening. And that can take you a long time to figure that out. You're not going to figure this out as a kid. Very rarely does someone figure this out as a kid. And I started figuring it out only in my middle 30s because they all abandoned me. If they hadn't done that, I don't know how long it would have. Letting go of the past. What we're talking about is we're talking about our pain, our past pain. And so, that is, now it is part of you. It is part of you. It's changed you. You're not going to ever be the same again. And that's okay. That's okay. That, there was an ending for a new beginning. And, I, for one, am in about my third reinvention of a whole new life. I've had a whole life, a whole identity, a whole existence, and now 2 times. I'm on the third one. Yeah. So, just like the life that I was living, completely gone. It's happened again now. And so, that's okay. That opens it up for a new beginning. And that's the cycle of life. And until we get okay with deaths and endings and loss, we can't have birth, beginnings, and gains. So I hope you guys like this video. This was what seemed to me a really important topic, this idea of letting go of our past. You're not going to let go of your past. You're not going to do it. Please like this video, you guys, and if you haven't already, please subscribe to my channel. And I will talk with y'all very, very soon.